What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/TalesFromRetail. Alright, this story's called, "But I need formula for my baby. Are you sure?" I've worked in a supermarket for 10 years. You get your share of Karens, and the only thing you can do is smile politely. But what I hated even more after an 8-hour shift and having to close up the supermarket were the customers who came in 5 to 10 minutes before closing and just do their shopping like no one wants to go home. There was a time that I was scheduled every Friday closing shift and pretty much every Saturday closing shift. The store closed at 8. We weren't open on Sundays then. Also on Saturday, we had to take out all the cash drawers and manually count all the money. We could start doing this when all the customers had left and the front and back doors were locked. So customers coming in 5 to 10 minutes before closing time and taking their sweet time to shop were hated. Hated with a passion. My shop had a procedure. We would barricade our entrance and turn our front door on, only opening when people wanted to leave the store at about 5 minutes before closing. We would remind customers at 1:45, 10:10, and 5 to closing time that the store was going to close and please go and pay for their groceries. Normally, we had very few incidents. This one, however, is burned in my memory. It was a Saturday. As head of the cashiers for that night, I had the honor to make or break the day of our beloved customers. I had to deal with my fair share of Karens, male and female, and I just wanted to go home. So I follow the procedure, ask one of my fellow money handlers to set the front door, and stay there to handle any customer. At 2 minutes before closing time, a man comes running to the door. My colleague asks what he needs and reminds him that the store is going to close and he won't have much time. He says he just needs formula. Since I was busy with the customer, she let him in. Guy gets a basket and goes into the shop. Since he said he needed formula, we thought he would be in and out like the Roadrunner. Nope. No, because Formula Man didn't need formula. At 8:05, Formula Man is seen at the cheese section of our store. 8:15 at our wine section. What the heck does he need that for? What kind of baby does he have? Several of my colleagues have gone to this man to get him to the counter. He scoffs, huffs, says that he's a paying customer. My fellow money handler was the last one to go to him, and that's when he went too far. He yelled at her, cussing at her, and making a high school student cry. Now I'm pissed, so I do what I always do in these situations. I take off my store shirt, put out a neat jacket I keep in case of emergencies, and put it on. You see, when you have the store outfit on, you are often seen as a lesser being. But behold, I changed my outfit and suddenly I look like management and my word is all powerful. The real manager sees this happening, pops out a huge grin and goes to the back and watches from the security cameras. So I don the magical outfit and go to Formula Man. I tell him in no uncertain terms that the store has been closed for 15 minutes and he has been asked multiple times to go and pay for his things. He starts to huff and puff himself up like the big bad wolf. I'm a 5'2" woman. People think they can intimidate me. I told him that he was only allowed entrance since he said he needed formula. So I gave him a choice. He could go now and pay for the things in his basket, or I would take the basket from him, grab the formula he claimed to need so much, and he could pay for that. He could choose not to do either, and in that case, security would love to make his acquaintance. Either way, he would leave now. He tried. Oh boy, he tried to threaten and intimidate me. He failed. He left with his cheese and wine, and many threats to call corporate. The next week, he came again. This time, he encounters me at the door. What did he need? Formula. So I brought him to our service desk, went inside, and brought out a single pack of every kind of formula we had. Asked him which one he needed. He didn't say a word and left. Don't mess with our closing times. This story's called I Wasn't Worth Her Attention Until Suddenly I Was. So this isn't a huge explosive Karen story, but I did find it mildly amusing how this customer had no reason to pay attention to me until it affected her in a negative way. I worked at a bookstore that has gone the way of the dinosaurs. A woman comes up to the registers with two of her friends. They're gabbing non-stop, and the lady in question doesn't even pause as she plops an armful of books on my counter. Okay, I can live with this. I don't have to make small talk. So I ring up her books. I don't remember the total now, so I'll just throw one in there. Okay, ma'am, your total is $11.50. Blah, 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 blah. She absently pulls out a $10 bill and sort of limply tosses it in my direction. Ma'am, the total is $11.50. Do you have another $1.50? Woman barely breaks eye contact with her friend to tilt her head a tiny smidge in my direction. No. So anyway, yakety schmackety. Okay then. Ma'am, will you please choose which of these books you are not buying today? I can't do record scratch. I suddenly have her full and complete attention. What? Please choose which of these books you want me to take off your total and put away, since you're not buying it today. What are you talking about? I want them all. Speaking with infinite patience. Well, ma'am, your total is $11.50. You only gave me a 10. I asked if you had more money to cover the full amount of your total, and you told me you didn't. So I need to ask you to choose which book you're not going home with today. I pick up a random book at random, shake it gently in the air, and make as if I'm about to go put it on the go back shelf. Oh, wait a minute. She turns a bit red, promptly fishes in her purse, pulls out a $5 bill, and hands it over. Me smiling my retail smile. Trademarked. Thank you, ma'am. Here's your change. Have a nice day. No apology, but she clearly felt at least a little ashamed or guilty for not paying attention, because she wouldn't look at me in the eye as her friends make faint snickering sounds. I don't think she was being malicious or trying to lie about not having money until she was called out. I just think she wasn't paying attention at all. She just fired off a no at random to what she thought was a generic retail question so she could get back to her all-important conversation. She had no reason to give an anonymous retail person the time of day until she suddenly discovered that something important was actually happening. We can all hope that the incident taught her a small lesson, but I'm not taking any actual bets on that. People. It's so funny how, I said people like 4 times. Another one. Anyway, a lot of people end up feeling, invisible in some retail environments, as demonstrated here. And that's not cool. I mean, some people might like it, but, you know, people are people. But that's why you have social lives outside of work. But as consumers, we can be nice. Maybe talk to people sometime. Be nice to them. I like to talk to people just randomly. Like if I see someone, if I'm out walking, hey, how's it going? How are you doing today? Nice weather. Yeah, I'm just like a freaking suburban dad, basically. This story's called Customer Had a Huge Shouting Match with a Coworker Over $1.50. Hailing once again from the arts and crafts store I used to work at, this event happened on one of the slower days in early spring of 2019. It was just me and a coworker up front. I was a cashier and they were the front-end supervisor of my shift. In comes a customer with a large bag of electric candles she wanted to return. No problem, if the item still functioned, that meant a full refund. So we tested each candle. Only one of them didn't turn on even with the new batteries. Front-end supervisor made sure to mention that that candle in particular wouldn't be returned. And as she headed out back to get some more change for my register, the customer's mood soured almost immediately. This woman angrily mutters, "Who does this 15-year-old think she is?" She was referring to the front-end supervisor, who at the time was 19. Keep in mind, these candles are worth just $1.50 each, and this woman got furious. When the front-end supervisor returned with the change, customer customer demanded she'd get the full refund for the broken candle regardless, and immediately began to shout every insult she could at her. Front-end supervisor did not hesitate to snap right back while still keeping a big smile on her face. But you knew she was furious by just how red her face was. I was watching on in silent disbelief at how sudden this entire thing escalated. Customer got even louder and angrier to the point surrounding customers immediately noticed. Some went as far as defending us while bashing this crazy woman for her unnecessary and extremely rude behavior. Customers simply shouted angrily at them as well, and it got to the point the manager and assistant managers went to the front to see what was going on. The shouting could be heard throughout the entire store. Crazy lady tried to make it seem like both myself and the front-end supervisor were in the wrong. I stayed quiet throughout this massive shouting match, yet I was somehow to blame as well. Karen logic. When the lady realized no one was taking her side, she stormed off, leaving the candles behind without the return being completed, all while threatening to sue. She never came back. I completely forgot to mention, but the customer had no receipt, and even though she claimed to have had a rewards account, she didn't have the card and didn't want to use her personal information to look it up. First and last name or just phone number would have sufficed. In the event a customer doesn't have a receipt but has a rewards account, the transaction can be found that way. She would have gotten store credit for that broken candle, with 20% taken off of that $150 due to a lack of receipt and rewards account. Damn. Just goes to show a lot of things can go pretty well if you just listen. Just listen. But, you know, apparently that's too much for these Karens who were born without ears, apparently. Haha. They just stole the manager's ears. That's where the phrase, lend me an ear comes from, or I'll have your ear. I'll yell your ear off. That's from the Karens and the managers, and that's how they all have ears. This story's called Grandma's Ripe Avocados. Not as interesting as some of the stories I've read here, but it was memorable at least. It was my first week working at a big, widely known grocery store, and my department was online grocery pickup. Because it was my first week, I was scheduled to be doing a little bit of everything so I could be trained in every area of the job. Helping with online orders that weren't grocery, picking the grocery orders, and doing the actual job of taking the groceries outside to customers. On this day in particular, it was only my first or second time actually picking out groceries without the person who was training me. I was minding my business in the produce section, trying to remember all the info crammed into my head over the span of a day and a half, when someone right next to me half shouts, "Do you work here?" I look over, scanner in one hand and produce bag in the other, and cranky grandma is staring me down. Yes. Can I help you find something?" She holds up her opaque produce bag and gestures wildly to the avocado shelf near us. "Are these ripe?" I stare at her and try to comprehend what in the fresh hell is being asked of me. I'm not an avocado farmer. I don't even like avocados. All of those avocados could be expired or rotten for all I know. I answer truthfully. I'm new, so I'm not actually sure, but I'll be happy to find that answer for you. She stares at me and goes, "I just want to know if they're ripe." I stare back for a moment and look around uncertainly until I catch the eye of my coworker, who seems to have heard what's going on. She comes over to help. "Is there something you need help with, ma'am?" Cranky grandma turns to her and shakes her opaque bag of avocados once more. "I just need to know if these are ripe." My coworker begins to answer, but before she can even get a full sentence going, cranky grandma turns to the shelf of avocados and promptly dumps out her produce bag. She turns to my coworker again. "Where are your fresh walnuts? Not bagged, fresh." At that point, I turned to go anywhere but there so I could let out my laughter in peace. I eventually learned to deal with difficult customers, but truly didn't realize how crazy people really were until my entire half a year at that awful job. You'd expect the type of person to go and buy avocados would know what avocado is ripe and what isn't. Yeah, I feel like that's just something that comes with wanting to buy an avocado, you know what I'm saying? Like, Like, no one just looks at an avocado and is like, oh, I wonder if this tastes good. You either like avocados and know about them, or you freaking heard that avocados are really good for you. And, you know all that adjacent information. This story's called Out of Old Fashioned. I work as a baker at a grocery store, covering just about all of the baked goods we sell, from bread to muffins to donuts. We don't always have every kind of donut, and some are more popular than others. So I try to give as much variety as I can and spice things up a little to compensate. That being said, as you all are probably aware, you can't always please everyone. After baking, I work on packaging bread near the counter of my station, opening myself up to the customers and making me vulnerable to questions, that of which I do not mind. Especially in the morning hours, people usually aren't too keen on talking much, so interactions are pretty quick and painless. Today, however, our star of the show surely did bust out a performance. At the sound of an "Excuse me," I made my way over to help as soon as I could. However, before I could greet the customer, I was asked, "Do you have any of the plain donuts?" Well, no, we didn't. Sadly, that's one of the more popular ones, so we were still waiting to get that restocked. Not only that, but my manager had made a point to tell me that we were out of the old-fashioned, so I apologized and broke the bad news. He didn't like this much. He began explaining to me what an old-fashioned donut looked like, and although I was completely aware already, I heard him out and apologized once again about the lack of that kind of donut in our stock. "Can you go check?" he would ask me, which would make me pause for a moment. Hypothetically speaking, if I did manage to find some old-fashioned in stock, the man would find himself waiting there for up to an hour and a half waiting for me to proof them and fry them for him. And not only was I sure this man did not want to spend any more time there than he needed to, but I didn't want to take away space from the other bakers just for one tray of donuts that I was sure we didn't have anyways. I calmly informed him of my position and how I had been adamantly insisting on a restock, to which he replied by demanding for a manager. To be frank, my shift was 3 minutes away from being over at this point, so when I gleefully fled off to retrieve a manager, I didn't bother returning to my station for any longer than I needed to clean it off. While I stood cleaning, I heard my manager tell the customer the same thing, to which the man proceeded to melt down about it in front of my manager. Night shifts can really tear at a woman's soul, so I didn't bother to witness the chaos that proceeded after that, taking the long way through the back doors to the break room in a successful attempt to avoid another encounter. I saw my manager later on too, so luckily he survived as well. Old-fashioned donuts aren't amazing, but like, they're pretty good, especially if you dip them in chai or coffee. Pretty good. However, okay, my favorite used to be Boston cream, but no longer because they're just too much, man. Too much going on in there. I like the crispy cream glazed. That's good. Also, like the pink sprinkles. Whew. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.